Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. Today I'll be presenting a tutorial on how you can have singletons in your Godot project. So if you don't know, the singleton design pattern lets you have a structured way of storing global variables. These variables can then be accessed from other scenes and other scripts in your game. For Godot, the documentation suggested way of implementing singletons is by using the Autoload script feature. This is definitely one way you can implement your singletons. It has both benefits and drawbacks. So to help you decide, in today's video, I'll be presenting 3 ways, including the Autoload approach of implementing singletons in Godot. So let's get started. So the first approach of having singletons in your project is through Godot's Autoload feature. And for that, I have a scene here where I have a couple of nodes that I'll go into more details in just a minute. But before that, we also have a singleton script, which I'm going to open. And as you can see in the singleton script, we only have just a single variable called counter, which I have initialized to 0. And we are going to add this script as a autoload to our project. And to do that, I'm going to go into project settings, to the globals tab, and underneath in the autoload section, if I press the folder icon to browse, I'll find the script here, which is singleton0.gd. I'll then add it, and by doing that, I have added this script as an autoload script to our project, and this script now should be available from any other script directly, and the state of the script should be shared between all of the other scripts. So if I now close it, I'll now go back to the 2 nodes that I already have added to the scene. As you can see, both of them have the same script attached to them, and if I open that script, you will see that in their ready function, first I am accessing the autoload script directly. Inside that, I have the counter variable, and I am incrementing it. Once I have incremented the counter, I'm just printing it out. And so that's basically it. I have 2 instances of this script in my scene, so the expected behavior should be that I'll see the counter increasing with ready function call to each of the nodes. So if I now run the scene, you can see in the output console here that the singleton counter was 1 first, and then it became 2. So that's one way of having singleton in your Godot projects. But the second approach, I have a somewhat different setup here. So in this approach, you will have one scene, which we are going to call the Bootstrap Scene, always loaded into memory, and this scene is actually going to hold the reference to your singleton object. So as you can see in here, we have the Bootstrap Scene, underneath which we have a parent that will hold all of the different singletons as its children. So in this case, we just have one example of a singleton, which is singleton A. And if I go into the script that's attached to it, which is called, well, in this case, just singleton1.gd. So if I open that script, you will see that inside it, we have, just like before, a counter variable. And we also do something else in the ready function, which is that we register this singleton with a autoload script, which we call the singleton accessor. So the idea behind this is that if we look into the singleton accessor script, you will see there are 2 functions. One is register singleton and the other is get singleton. So when you call the register singleton function, as we were doing in the ready function that we just saw, we provide an instance of the singleton and we provide a name that we want to use as the name for the singleton. And once this function gets those 2 values, it will first check whether the singleton name already exists in a dictionary that it holds. If it does not, it will just add this singleton instance inside this dictionary using the singleton name as a key. And by doing that, what we can then do is at a later time, we can again access this singleton accessor. Remember, I said that the singleton accessor is going to be a autoload script. So we will have access to this script from anywhere in our project. So we can access it and basically tell it that, well, I need a reference of a certain singleton. So here is the name, give me back the singleton. And we can do that by going through the get singleton function. So we'll provide a singleton name here. It will check again whether the singleton has been already registered. and if it has been, we'll just return an instance of that singleton. So that's basically what we are doing inside when we call the register singleton function. We register this particular singleton with the singleton accessor, and as always, the singleton accessor has been added inside the project setting globals autoload section, as you can see here. We also have another script here which is attached to the Bootstrap root node, and this script is called the level loader.gd script. If I open that one, you can see that first of all we are preloading another scene into this simultaneous scene object variable, and then in the process we just detect whether we have pressed the enter button on our keyboard, and if we do so, we load this scene. And by doing so, what we really do is, if I go into the other.tscn, which is the other scene, you can see that there are a couple of agent nodes that's been added to this scene, and each of these nodes has a script which is the same script for both of them, which is called the agent controller.gd script. If I open that, you can see in the ready function what we do is that we call the singleton accessors get singleton method. Again, like I mentioned, the singleton accessor is a globally available autoload script, so we should be able to access it. We ask it to give us back a reference to singleton A, which is the singleton that we registered in our Bootstrap scene. Once we have a reference to that, we increase the counter by 1 and then print it. And because we have 2 instances of the script in this scene, what should happen is that the first script, when it processes, when it executes the ready function, should increase it by 1, and then the other script, when it runs, should increase it again. And to see if that really happens, we'll first go back to the Bootstrap scene. We are going to run this scene. Obviously we don't really see anything, but if I now press the enter button, it should load the other scene. And as you can see, when that scene loads, in our console log we have first counter is 1 and then counter is 2, and that means that the singleton is working as expected. One benefit of doing the singleton this way rather than using the global autoload method is that your singletons are actually in the scene tree, and that means that if you have a variable that you want to export, you can have them in the inspector and you can assign values here. So if I increase the value of the counter by, let's say, 2 to begin with, and then run the project, you can see that when I press enter, it starts from 3 and goes to 4. So that's one of the benefits of having it this way. Obviously this is a more complicated way of doing it, but it has certain benefits. And the final way of making singletons in your project that I know of is by using the static variable type. I believe it was added quite recently in Godot 4.3. So what static variables let you do is basically 2 things. So first of all, the variable that is of type static will only have 1 instance in your project. So in our example here, we have a variable called instance that is a static variable, and so that means that this instance variable is going to be shared between all instances of the script. And the second thing that it lets us do is that we can actually access this variable directly through the class name itself. So we don't really need to have a reference to an instance of the script first and then access the variable. We can just use the class's name, put a dot, and after that, if we just say instance, that will give us a reference to this variable. And what we are doing in the script is that in the ready function, we are basically just assigning self, which is the script itself, and this script is the singleton. So this is the singleton itself. We are assigning the singleton to the instance variable. And that means because we can now access the instance variable anywhere from our project, because it's static, we can access the singleton quite easily without actually having any kind of autoload script. The rest of the scene looks quite similar. Again, we have the singleton in a Bootstrap scene, which is going to be responsible for loading in other scenes. And in the other scene, this time we again have a couple of agents that have the agent controller script attached to them. In this approach, we don't really need to get a reference to the singleton first by using the singleton accessor like we used before. We can, like I said, we can directly access the instance by using the singleton class's name, and we can manipulate whatever variable we want to through that. So again, we are increasing the value of the counter here by 1, and because we have 2 nodes here, it should increase twice, and we're then just printing it out. So if I go back to the singleton scene and run it, you can see if I press enter, the variable just increased from 1 to 2. So these are the 3 approaches that I am aware of making singletons in your Godot project. If you know of any other approaches, please let me know in the comment section. I hope this video was somewhat helpful for those who are just starting out with Godot, or who are just starting out a new project and was looking into having singletons in their project. So please like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and stay tuned for the next video, which hopefully is coming next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.